beneath a foreign watchful sky, lost in shadows far from shore, seeking answers, wanting more. No map to guide, no path to find, just this feeling stranded.
The hedonistic self-absorption I saw on the rich playgrounds of planet Earth, like Mallorca and Ibiza, stands in sharp contrast to the way Estolians give themselves to family, so often at the expense of self. Gregorio says the contrast is necessary, that without our neighboring islands as glaring examples, Estolians might forget why their land feels rare. Once he pointed this out, I knew he was right. Wraith Zakarian, Enscrido.
She woke, refreshed, her muscles no longer taut as she stretched. A yawn escaped her, and she looked around the strange room, taking in the details clearly for the first time. Though subtle, everything from the textured fabric lining the walls to the intricately carved crown molding bespoke of wealth. The 2 weeks she spent in Mallorca with Walter and Mandy got her used to living at a level of wealth that was quite obscene. But even he did not have the kind of understated but undoubted wealth of this room. Unlike the obscene displays she had seen, this room radiated a quiet elegance. The thick gold leaf decorations covering nearly every surface in Walter's house had given her a distaste for the color. If something was gaudy or ostentatious, Walter had it. This room, though, was clearly furnished with an eye for taste that far surpassed the sheer expense. She was still studying the tapestries and richly polished furniture when a knock sounded, and the door pushed inward. A beautiful woman with bronze hair stepped in, a toddler balanced on her hip. She smiled warmly at Kat.
"Hey there."
She said softly, her voice carrying a familiar American lilt.
"Hope you don't mind. Tiernan will get into anything if I leave him even a moment, so I thought I had better bring him."
I don't mind at all.
Kat reassured her.
I'm Kat.
"I'm Cailey,
She said with an easy grin.
and this is Tiernan."
Kat's gaze drifted to the boy, his little hands curling into his mother's hair.
Where am I?
"This is the North Tower room.
Cailey said, glancing around as if to remind herself of it too.
My husband's uncle said you should have it, and what he says usually ends up being the final word. He's the boss, after all."
But why put me in your best room? I might break something or smudge it.
Cailey crossed to the bed and set Tiernan down beside Kat. The boy immediately started crawling toward her, his little hands reaching for anything within range. With a smile in her voice, Cailey added,
This is only one of our guest suites. It isn't really among the best rooms in the palace, but Zeke was adamant that this was the right place for your stay."
Palace?
Kat remembered the palace she had circled. Cailey chuckled.
"Here in Estolia, we tend to put guests in the palace. It's the only thing that makes sense since we don't have any hotels. We do have a guest house in El Chicsonia, but that's rarely used, and not at all convenient to the palace."
I've never heard of Estolia.
Kat admitted. She frowned, remembering the conversation she'd had with Walter. They'd flown the ferry route to Ibiza from Palma, because the Pequeño government was picky about who entered their airspace. They hadn't landed at Ibiza since Walter wanted to get back to Mandy and because he was already tired. It was not long after they'd turned away from Ibiza that he stopped making sense.
Is Estolia near Pequeño?
She asked.
Pequeño is one of Estolia's domains.
Cailey explained.
It's a small island northeast of the main one.
I didn't realize that there was more than just Pequeño in this direction.
Cailey laughed.
Estolia is one of those nations that just isn't well known. It is south of the normal ferry routes, and it is restricted airspace, so very few even notice it exists. The waters around Estolia are hazardous with submerged rocks, so it's one of those places that people just don't go, since it's not that interesting.
People speak English here?
She asked, remembering the way that the first person she spoke with on the radio called her Mademoiselle and sounded more French than Spanish or English. By this point in their conversation, the toddler had succeeded in crawling into Kat's lap. He snuggled close to her and started to hum softly to himself. Cailey shook her head.
Nearly everyone in Estolia is bilingual.
she explained.
I'm from the United States myself. I was living in Phoenix until I met my husband.
She smiled.
I haven't been back since then.
The toddler on her lap looked up and said something in a language she'd never heard before.
هل تبقى هنا؟
Vaguely reminiscent of Spanish, but more musical. Poetic gibberish, Kat thought.
نعم يا حبيبي، هذا صحيح.
When Cailey responded in kind, the boy looked at Kat.
English?
She smiled.
Yes, I speak English.
He glanced from his mother to her, then grinned.
Okay.
He's pretty advanced for his age, isn't he?
Kat observed. Cailey nodded, a wide grin on her face.
Leon's father and uncle both say it's typical for Estolian children, since they're all raised bilingual, more or less.
They're all taught English and Estolian?
Kat guessed.
Heavens no.
Cailey shook her head.
Nearly every family has at least one member from another country, so usually their language is the second language. Frequently it is French, English, or Spanish, but I believe that there are as many as 42 unique languages currently in use in Estolia.
How large is Estolia?
Kat wondered. She knew Majorca was the largest island and Formentera the smallest, but she was not sure how large the satellites were. None of them seemed big enough to hold a palace and a population with 42 languages. Still, when she thought back to her adventure, Estolia had seemed far larger than Ibiza.
Estolia is second only to Majorca.
Cailey said with a grin.
How is that possible?
Kat was so excited when Mandy invited her on this adventure. She had studied up on the region they would be visiting and practically had the map of the islands memorized. Only one of the maps had been different from the rest, showing Pequeño and indicating the presence of dangerous rocks in the region. She had been fascinated by the entire Mediterranean ever since she was in the first grade, and her teacher, Mrs. Bishop, spoke about Roman and Greek mythology.
Estolia is like the lost continent of Atlantis, though it's definitely not a continent. It's simply not interesting to the rest of the world, so nobody really does much research into it.
A tap sounded on the door, and when it was pushed open, the boy on her lap said happily,
Daddy.
The man who entered was dressed in a dark shirt and trousers, complemented by a beautiful cape. He wore two additional curiosities, a thick, ornate crown and a scabbard strapped around his hips, complete with a sword.
Darling,
Cailey said.
did I forget the time?
He grinned.
Yes, you did.
He entered, followed by a man in an elaborate robe. Both approached the bed. The little boy on Kat's lap grinned at his father, babbling rapidly in his native language before adding,
هل تبقى هنا؟ English.
Leon looked at him solemnly,
كل مرحبا ترنان.
replied in the same tongue, then lifted his gaze to her.
Good morning.
Good morning.
She said. Before she could reply, there was a faint tap before the door opened again. Would she ever get a moment alone to shower and dress? The face that appeared was one she knew at once. Benzerik. He glanced at Leon and said,
Apologies for my delay, cousin.
He stepped forward, his voice carrying a new gravitas.
Kat, allow me to introduce Leonidas Agamemnon Zakarian, Duke, Sovereign, and King of Estolia. Leon, this is Ekaterina Zomel, though she goes by Kat.
Kat marveled at the ease with which this man spoke her full name. Very few got the inflections correct. The weight of his words, King of Estolia, finally settled, and a flush crept up her neck.
Please, call me Leon. We Estolians love formal introductions, if only so that we can set all that formality aside once they're done.
Leon's smile softened the grandeur of his crown and cape. His expression carried a sincerity that felt more like welcome than ceremony. With Tiernan in her arms, Kat was unable to greet him properly, but Leon's relaxed demeanor suggested he took no offense. After a moment, he continued, his tone warm.
I would like to introduce you to my uncle, Lazarus Ezekiel Zakarian, former last resort, first consul, and our current keeper. Zeke, this is Kat.
Cailey gently lifted Tiernan from her lap just as Zeke approached, extending both his hands to her. His grip was firm but gentle as he took her hands in his. His gaze was intense, probing, as if peering into the depths of her soul. For Kat, Time stretched out before snapping back into place. A slow smile spread over his features.
It is a true pleasure to welcome you to Estolia. Please consider Estolia as if it is your home. You are welcome to remain for as long as you wish.
Ben said.
You have probably already met her, but just in case, this is Callista Tire Zakarian, Queen of Estolia, Cailey of the King and mother of the heir apparent. Cailey, this is Kat.
Cailey grinned playfully at Benzeric.
I think she's wonderful. Not very many people can wake up in a strange room and entertain royalty in their nightgown.
She gestured to the toddler, playing at her husband's feet.
And the little guy is Tiernan. He'll be king someday. But for now, he's just a bundle of energy.
Zeke spoke.
Before I leave you to get dressed, I wanted to appraise you of the situation.
He turned and glanced at the others.
We will see you at breakfast in an hour or so,
said the king.
Benzeric will make sure you can find your way.
He stooped, lifting his son with a smile before glancing back at her.
If you will excuse us.
With Cailey at his side and Tiernan in his arms, he left the room. With the royal family gone, an intimate hush fell over the room. Benzeric and Zeke settled into chairs near the bed, their expressions somber. Zeke's gaze rested on Kat, a mix of concern and authority in his eyes. Benzeric leaned forward, his voice low and gentle as he spoke.
Once we had you safely here, we were in touch with the Du Tournier estate. They requested that we fly the airplane back to Mallorca. Your friend Mandy was most distressed to learn about her boyfriend's demise.
He frowned at Zeke before continuing.
She spoke directly with me and told me that I should bring your clothing to you. She did not feel as if she could continue your friendship. She is clearly grieving. She wanted me to give you a message and tell you that you should find your own way home.
Kat should have realized that Mandy would respond in that way. She looked away from the perceptive eyes of the two men and swallowed on the reality of being stranded far from home, along with the dangers potentially present in Kentucky. She had fled those dangers and the implications of her father's alleged nefarious dealings when she accompanied Walter and Mandy to Mallorca, but she was on her own now. After she swallowed back her emotions and pulled herself together, she asked,
Do you have an American embassy?
We have a number of consulates on the island of Pequeño.
Zeke answered.
We do not rate an embassy being too small and too unimportant a nation. We do have Estolian embassies in other countries.
He studied her a moment, eyes perceptive.
What has you concerned?
She looked from him to Benzeric and back again.
Mandy and Walter flew me out here. I was planning to stay for 3 months and get a place to live and a job after the visit. I don't even have airfare to return home.
In the 24 hours since the news of Du Tournier's death broke, you have become a bit of an overnight sensation,
Benzeric said, his tone even but carrying a quiet gravity meant to soften the blow.
Social media is reporting that you will be quite wealthy when you turn 21. Is that not correct?
Something in the way Benzeric spoke, steady but warmer than the question required, unsettled her. Kat told herself it was nothing more than polished courtesy, though a part of her wondered why it sounded almost personal.
It is true, but I will not be 21 until August. I think that is one reason Walter was comfortable with me hanging around them. He knew that I ultimately did not need his money.
She wondered if the papers were explaining the conditions she had to meet to inherit the money. Looking from one man to the other, she sensed the older man knew more than he was saying, but the younger man did not seem to know as much.
Kat, I should like for you to accept our hospitality until you turn 21.
Zeke said.
This suite has a sitting room on the next floor down, along with 2 other bedrooms. Benzeric and I will wait for you downstairs. You will find that all your clothing is in the drawers and closet. Feel free to take a shower and then join us when you are done. We can explain a few other things at that time.
Lights fade down. The world spins out of view. A gilded cage. A destiny